Welcome to the Bids Auditorium for tonight's featured fight, the first fight in a 3-fight unification round battle between U2's Songs of Experience, sides 1 through 4. We want to welcome some of our celebrities who are ringside, to include Christina Aguilera. Yes, hi Christina, how are you? Pamela Anderson, David Hasselhoff. I see Charles Barkley over there, and Kid and Play, all ringside. Muhammad Ali, if I haven't said hi to you, hello to the greatest champ of all time. And there's Kenny Ward and a host of others. Thank you all worldwide who are watching or listening wherever you are. And to our troops listening on AFN, thank you for your service. And now, in the green corner, weighing in at 10 songs. Side 1 from Songs of Surrender, hailing out of Dublin, Ireland, U2. In the gold corner, from Dublin, Ireland, the greatest band of all time, weighing in at 10 songs, U2. Let's get ready to rumble.
And welcome to an amazing album fight we've got lined up, everybody. We are featuring, for the first time ever, an album a week after its release. So this is something new for us at Album Fight, but we've all been looking forward to this for a long time, basically since this was announced. So we have Disc 1 versus Disc 2 of Songs of Surrender by U2, released 1 week ago. And before I go over to Richard's pre-fight analysis, for those of you who are new to Album Fight, I'm going to give a quick 1-minute summary of how Album Fight actually works. This is an album versus album fight, but the scoring is done as if it was a boxing match. Each track is a round, so when we have 2 10-track albums, we have a 10-round fight. Scoring is a 10-point must. What that means is the winner of each round always gets 10 points. Our possible scores are 10-10, which is a tie. And while ties are allowed, they're highly, highly discouraged. We always try to find a nit to pick so that we can have a winner for every single round. 10-9 is a standard round. There's a winner, there's a loser. It's our most common score. 10-8 in boxing terms would be a knockdown. In musical terms, it's saying one song is stronger by a pretty wide margin. It's a pretty lopsided contest. 10-7 in boxing terms would be a double knockdown. The loser is most likely being saved by the bell here. In musical terms, think of a song you never skip, taking on a song you always skip. That would be the best way to summarize what a 10-7 is. All album fights go the distance, so 10-7 is the biggest disparity we get between 2 songs. Before we do a little bit more talk about the songs and the album, we're going to go to Richard, and we're going to hear Richard's pre-fight analysis. Richard
here. We've got a unique album fight this week because it's one band, it's multiple albums and multiple songs, and they're brand new versions of those songs. So consider the number system this week kind of an experiment. I had to rework everything to make sense for this, but just want to point out, this is objective based on the original songs, not the new ones. So the quality of the new songs, the changes they made could make the songs better or worse than they traditionally are. So it's going to be fun. It's been interesting. Let's see how that works. Even when I looked at this, before I started looking at any numbers, I thought this is going to be a walk-off for side 1. The objective numbers, without listening, anything like that, have it 7 rounds for side 1, 2 rounds for side 2s, and then 1 round was pretty much a tie. Potential KOs for this fight: rounds 2, round 6, and round 10 for side 1. Side 2 has a potential knockout in round 3. Now, there's a couple of swing rounds where things are going to be pretty darn close. 4, 5, and 8. Look for those to maybe be split rounds. Look for those where it seems like on paper one song is going to win, but the other one actually takes it. Again, this is going to come down to the subjective side of this and how they have changed these songs and have they made them better or made them worse. Good luck, guys.
Let's hear from some judges. And let's start with Brian Betterirdge, who is returning to the tuxedo t-shirt after about 3.5 years. His last fight was our last U2 versus U2, where we pitted Songs of Experience versus Songs of Innocence. And everybody do Brian a favor and check out u2tours.com, his baby. And Brian, give us a few words of wisdom here before we start the round by round. What you thought of coming into this album fight, just a little bit of pre-fight info.
I thought that this was going to be an extremely close because, when we heard some of the songs when they were released as singles ahead of the release, I felt that they were all very, very even and very similar, both in how they felt and how they sounded when we listened to them, but also just in how they changed from the original versions. Like, I wasn't expecting any of these songs to be a massive revelation or be 1,000 times better than the original, nor was I really expecting them to be worse in any way. Like, I was kind of, I think in general, it's safe to say that very few of them are probably better than the original ones, but I was expecting them to be solid across the board and that it would be a very even experience. And I think by and large, when you listen to all 40 tracks together, that has really stuck with me. And I do feel as though that has kind of turned out to be true. But I think when the results come down, I was a little bit surprised by the results, but it also wasn't too far out with what I was expecting. But I mean, listening to these was a great experience. And, being able to sit down and listen to them as side by side was also a fun experience as well. And I think these are just going to grow and get better as the years go on.
Yeah, I've got to say that the more I listened to some of these songs, the more I liked them. It's hard to not hear the original song the first time you listen to it. So you have to grow your appreciation for these reimagined versions, but some of them are really, really good. Okay, our judge number 2 is no stranger to these shores. Todd Nemet is now making his 14th appearance in Album Fight. 14, man. That's
wow, it's been that many? I didn't know that.
Yes. So you're a veteran now. You should be able to do the rules better than I can at this point. So what did you think when we reached out to you and asked you to join this one?
Yeah, I have to admit, I hadn't even heard of this project, Songs of Surrender. So I was interested to listen to it. I just recently moved to Florida. I'm here by the beach, really close. So there's about 5 beach bars within like a fifth of a mile from me. And so I've become very sensitive to crappy acoustic covers of songs recently. And especially Stand By Me seems to be the one I hear the most. And so I had a little bit of trepidation with this album set, but I did wind up really liking it. I agree that the more you listen to it, the more it'll grow on you. And then, the more you can pick out the subtleties. I had a quick call with Pete a couple days ago. We were talking about this, and, because I'm a old fogey Generation Xer, I put it on my, with the big sound bar and the big subwoofer, and it just sounded kind of like mush and kind of like samey, and I really didn't care for it. Then I popped in my AirPods and kind of heard the intimacy of it. And, the mix was probably mixed more for AirPods, than for like arena concert. And that was kind of what unlocked it and opened it up to me. And then I was able to hear a lot of subtleties, a lot of differences. And then I really enjoyed it. I think the more I would listen to it, the more I would like it. But this is clearly, not mixed for car speakers, not mixed for like, a big stereo system. This is mixed for AirPods, like a lot of modern music today is anyway.
Yeah, I've been listening to it in my car a lot, but I have the mix in my car set up to be a bit more in line with digital recordings. So it's sounding a lot more intimate in my car, almost like I'm listening to it in AirPods too. But yeah, I think that's helped a lot. Our final judge, everybody who's anybody on the Break It Down show knows this guy. And somebody I've known longer than I've known you too, almost 50 years now. Pete A. Turner, the producer of Break It Down show. Pete, you've already done an episode, which we should definitely set a link to with Dr. U2 himself. But as we go into this fight, what are your thoughts about what we're doing here?
Well, since I produce these episodes, when judges have family crises, I have to be ready to step in and judge. So I was trying not to judge because, I enjoy YouTube, but it's more about what everybody else wants to do. And so I appreciate the chance to slip into the tuxedo t-shirt for a few minutes and have a little fun. There's a couple of rules I know about YouTube that I've learned over my many, many years of talking about them with Mike and listening and really diving deep. And one is that they have a gear that really no other bands have. Maybe Madonna has it, and we'll see if Madonna's latest re-gearing happens, but they're able to reimagine their work, and I've learned to trust them. They'll make fantastic leaps and put themselves in a spot where it's dangerous because they can't just put out regular songs. That's not what they do. They want to do big, gigantic things. They always have. And so they have all these eras, all these projects, movies, and all these things. And so nothing is simple. So in fact, I think the audiobook, the performance of that audiobook is the best audiobook that's ever been made because there's so much in it. It's all above professional grade and it's all incredible. So when U2 says they're going to do something, they almost always pay off. There are sometimes when you get let down by some things, but even when they let you down, like No Line on the Horizon, it's not great, but there's a lot of greatness in it. So I've learned to trust that. And the other thing that I know about U2 is that their stuff ages well. Mike Lipari and I listened to Joshua Tree our senior year in high school on an old realistic one-speaker cassette deck. And we all, about 4 or 5 of us with the teacher who had the record, we all listened at lunchtime. And it took a minute to get some of those songs. Some sat right away, it was great. But this was the day of the release of the album, and it just kept getting better and better and better. And what that also does is it makes you look back to Unforgettable Fire and War and all these other albums and realize there's even more in there because this band is so good and everything's by design. I'm super excited to be here. I'm super excited to hang out with you guys. Looking forward to getting through the album fight. Those are my opening remarks.
Yeah, that is really one of my cherished memories. Hearing Where the Streets Have No Name for the first time, surrounded by friends, some of whom I'm still friends with now, and just the amazing sonic journey coming out of that little speaker, and yeah, Pete's point is valid. Some of the songs in Joshua Tree take a while to grow on you, especially at that point. But Streets was really just kind of, oh man, this is something special. As soon as I heard the opening bars. And talking about opening bars, it is time to do a fight. First, we have round 1. And that would be 1 going up against Who's Gonna Ride Your Wild Horses, both originally from 1991's Acton Baby. And I did names from a hat to pick the order here. So, Brian, your name came up first, so you get to lead us off.
Okay, so I'm going to start off with a knockout. I have 1 scoring 10 with Who's Gonna Ride Your Wild Horses scoring 8. And the reason comes down to, 1 is not always my favorite U2 song. It's actually fairly far down the list, which I find surprising because it's so popular, but when I was listening to it, it sounded to me a lot like when Johnny Cash covered Hurt, where the song takes on a whole new meaning. It becomes a different song, and suddenly it sounded like old man Bono singing to young man Bono and being like, I kind of told you so about something. I just thought it was fantastic. It almost as good as the original. I feel like this is one of those few songs where the Songs of Surrender version and the album version are extremely close. And the reason that it became a knockdown for me was that Who's Gonna Ride Your Wild Horses is a great song, but this version on the album, it just sounded like an acoustic cover. It didn't sound like they were doing anything new with it. It didn't sound like they were trying to take it in a new place. They were just doing an acoustic cover, and it was great. I loved it. If it was in a vacuum or against another song, it would have done a lot better. But 1 took on a whole new dimension with the way that Bono sang it. It just sounded so much better, and it felt like I was listening to a whole new song when I listened to 1, as opposed to just that cover. But I still think Who's Gonna Ride Your Wild Horses was a good cover. It's a good acoustic cover, but that's really all that it comes down to. Is just U2 covering themselves. So when 1 knocks down Who's Gonna Ride Your Wild Horses.
We don't usually get a round 1 knockdown, but I hear you. Definitely valid opinions here. Todd, you drew the number 2. Out of the
All right.
Giants hat, by the way.
Because you didn't have a Mud Hens hat. So, yeah, I agree with what Brian just said. In fact, in my notes, I mentioned Johnny Cash's version of Hurt as well. I think the thing that made me remember it was there's a part where they just bang on piano octaves at quarter notes, and that's exactly what they do in Hurt as well. And I was walking around for 2 days going, what is that song? What is that song? And I finally remembered. So it maybe even be a deliberate callback. And also I agree with what you said about the vocals. You know, I have this Dave Von Ronk CD when like the last one he made before he died, and his voice is like so cracked and whatever, and he uses it as an instrument. You can also kind of hear it through the acoustic guitar. And Bono, I think, does a little bit of that too. He's so close and so careful and, you know, up on the microphone that it's really good. I didn't mention that it was like a new song, but I totally agree with that. I didn't like the choir part of it, though, I have to say, when that came in. And I think there were some extra lyrics in there, too, that I wasn't crazy about. Who's Gonna Ride Your Wild Horses? I agree with this as well. This almost sounds like the demo that you would make the song from, you know. And I'm the kind of guy that searches out demos, like Elliott Smith's Miss Misery or Beware of Darkness, George Harrison, and I love those, but this didn't have that same kind of depth. I think it was a little bit thin, if that makes sense. So that was 10-9 for me.
Fair enough. Pete, you get to take the third spot this round.
Hey, thanks. I wanted to just start with Wild Horses. Like you guys said, this is really just more of a cover, and really, I think Garbage's cover is more interesting than this one from the Octune, the 20 or whatever it was year anniversary collection of covers. So if you're not even going to beat Garbage with your own song, it's just, you know, it's not going to do a whole lot for me. It's not going to do well in the round. A hat tip to Edge for all the people that are still thinking that Edge can't play the guitar. It turns out he is a fantastic musician and he has changed the guitar. So you can all start to relax now. He knows how to play. That's just to kind of say that thing. The one thing that I think was interesting about Wild Horses is towards the end, you know, they create great, and this is missing a lot of times in popular music, but there's a dynamic and the song grows and builds until finally, you know, Bono's really, and he's kind of does a Sugar Ray Leonard thing where he comes in with a flurry of great musical notes with his voice, and it's really beautiful in the last 30 seconds of the song. But it's going against one, and look, one is great. I like the choir part, but I especially like that. I think it was muted strings, but maybe it was some kind of percussion instrument where they had that sound, and it was like time was clicking, and it put me in sort of in a point of view of being maybe above Bono and watching him working on the chapter when he writes about one. It's just kind of like you were in a study with him, and then that goes away and that fades into the background. But it's clockworks, and this goes back to things like Love Is Blindness and all these other things. So I see him kind of processing through these things, and I do feel like what makes this different and a worthwhile cover is that separate, because this whole album is about separation of time and perspective, and I like that aspect of one. I did like the choir. I like the fact that it starts off with this leitmotif, dun, dun, dun. It's like 4 notes, and we get a similar thing going through a lot of the album, where you have these very simple, pulled back, not produced piano sounds that give you almost kind of a walking cadence. The whole first record, side 1, side 2, ends with the same leitmotif kind of coming in. And I'm saying leitmotif, not every chord is the same chord, but the feel is there. And so I really enjoyed that. For me, this is 10-9.
I wanted to jump in and say, you know, Edge's guitar works really good. Also, Adam Clayton's work on bass is really amazing in this song. You know,
yeah.
Henry Rollins has said some very mean things about their rhythm section that I sort of absorbed, you know, and I think that this completely belies that, because his bass work is really, really good at this.
You're right about that.
Adam and Larry both get just lambasted all the time, and it pisses me off, because without them, U2 wouldn't be U2. They're designed to go together. So it just, yeah. Every time I hear someone being critical of Larry or Adam, I'm like, yeah, how many albums have you sold? So
yeah.
Anyways, my little complaint about U2 critics in general. But we do have our first round in the hopper, and from the judges, it was unanimous. We do have a dissenting opinion in the CompuBox. But Disc 1 is off to a good start. And that takes us to round 2, where the streets have no name from 1987's Joshua Tree going up against Get Out of Your Own Way, originally from 2017's Songs of Experience. And Todd, you get the rotation this time.
All right. So I put this one as a knockdown, 10-8. I think Where the Streets Have No Name is one of my favorite songs that they do. And I think this one is really good. I like the arrangement. It didn't sound quite right at first without that kind of chimey, delayed guitar part that I really like. But Bono's voice is amazing. I think his voice is better at 62 than it was when he was younger. I mean, it's really amazing how he uses it like an instrument. Get Out of Your Own Way. So I'm rereading Meditations, and I got to say, Bono is no Marcus Aurelius, with this giving this kind of advice and stuff to your kid or whatever, how he wrote it. I don't really care for this, and it's on the verge of like a little bit of problematic Jamaican singing, going on. I did like the drum loop that was kind of going on underneath it, but I just didn't care for this song. It was the first time that I had heard it, and so I didn't even listen to the original. So this was 10-8 for me, quite easily.
Okay, another knockdown. That's unusual this quick into an album fight, but certainly these are new songs, and we're all learning about them as we go along. Pete, you are second up in round 2 here.
You're number 1 with me, Mike. That's the most important thing. So I want to start with Get Out of Your Own Way. I don't know that there's that much separation between a newer song from the U2 catalog and what they've got here. And that song also is sort of a reflective parent teaching, a younger person a lesson. There's a couple of great, interesting lyrics. One of them is, there's nothing stopping you except what's inside. And I think this is a really great message, but I think Bono doesn't land it. He talks about liberty and how she's been smacked in the face and slapped in the mouth. But here's the thing, is that what remains is nothing is stopping you, right? I promise Lady Liberty, she's got a face, a visage. Her visage is like a boxer. Like, her nose is smashed 100 times. She stands there. And really, if we worry about us, if we make ourselves resilient, we really can get out of our own way. The song remains true, but he's a little bit soft on that, and I wish he'd be a little bit rougher on that. So I don't need a celebrity to show me that things are okay, or someone to normalize me being a little overweight or mental health. I don't, just do your thing, man. That's sort of what he's saying, but it's just a little bit soft for someone who's normally clear as a bell on their message. And I wish there was a little bit more there, and he had a chance to come back and really clear that up. And he didn't. And then you're going against Where the Streets Have No Name. And look, I just love this song. The one critique I would have is the bass notes that are on the keys. This is just a Pete rule, but Bono has access. The entire band has an access to a pipe organ. This is a gigantic sound, and a pipe organ can hold that. You put those pipe organ bass notes in there, and it gets to be a bigger song. I need this song to be bigger because Streets is a huge song, and it just feels like it's like a linebacker in a size 42 chest shirt. It's just stuffed in there. So it's all right. And I'm not super disappointed in it, but it's just a straight 10-9 round. Streets wins it. Mike?
Okay. And Brian, I think you know what's happening here. Since the other two guys have gone, you are last for this round. Go ahead and give us your scores here.
Okay, so when I looked at this on paper and I just kind of saw them side by side, I was like, this has to be a double knockdown to me, because Streets is so great, and Get Out of Your Own Way almost felt like filler when it was on. But then when I listened to them, I surprised myself. I mean, Streets still won. It was a 10-9 score, but I'll start with Streets. It felt like a gospel song. It wasn't quite the same. Like Pete said, it didn't have the same oomph, didn't have the same power. I definitely felt like it was building to a crescendo that didn't actually come, we just didn't get it. But that didn't bother me, because it was almost like in my head, I finished the song with what I know the song would do, on the Joshua Tree or any sort of live setting. My head just kind of finished it for it, But it's still I was still into it. It was still great. I really, really enjoyed it. Get Out of Your Own Way surprised me. I thought it had a fantastic groove. and it sounded to me like I was sitting in a living room with all the members of U2, and they were just playing the song around me, and they were just having a jam at a party or something like that. And that really resonated with me as a fan, as somebody who is such a fan of their live music more so than their studio music. To have that feeling really drove that song up a few pegs for me. I know a couple of you talked about the lyrics. I have to say, when I listen to music in general, lyrics don't really like, I hear the lyrics as another instrument more so than what the actual words are, and I have to listen to songs for a while to really start to take in the meaning of the words. And so I know in my head that the lyrics do always feel a little bit silly, but in this case, it didn't really impact it for me. It was that spark of, I'm sitting in a little tiny jam session with U2 that really did it for me and brought that song up. So I really was surprised that it was a 10-9 score, but I still think it was appropriate that Streets won.
I am the only voice of dissemination in this round in the scorecard. Streets didn't land for me. This was almost a 9-9 round when I was doing the scoring myself. But I think I'll like Streets more the more I listen to it. Again, it was just such a difference from the original that for me it just didn't quite land right. But my scores don't count, thankfully. So let's move on here and go into round 3. Where we have Stories for Boys. It's an old one from 1980s Boy originally, versus Stuck in a Moment You Can't Get Out of from 2000's All That You Can't Leave Behind. And Pete, you're up first in this round.
Oh, let me put myself up here on the big screen. Hey, everybody. All right. The Stories for Boys thing, the leitmotif returns. I love that Edge is taking the lead on the singing, and I really dig how Bono comes in and sings backup for that. It's a sublime thing, and I just want to take a moment. And like throughout the album, the entire all 40 songs, the singing is it's top notch. And these guys can do a million takes. So when it's fragile, when it's peaky, when it's high, or whatever, all that is by design. And I have so much respect for that. The distance between the very first song that Bono basically ever publishes to this one, it's just a chasm. I said it was chasmic, right? Because it's just so big. But the song is still written by a 17-year-old or 18-year-old kid, and it just doesn't have the depth that Bono will have later on. And so, though it is a reimagination, and this is an interesting thing, I've been struggling with, these aren't remixes. Okay, look, they are remixes, they are covers, they are reorchestrations, but they're really not the traditional form. This is really a new form of what they're doing here, and putting age into a song and putting new perspectives into it. And we see that throughout the album. So I give them credit for taking a shot at taking the very first song that was on U2 and trying to do something with it. And I think they did a great job with that part. But you're going against Stuck in a Moment, and that is, that's just an unfair fight. You've got an adult band doing an adult topic, and it's powerful. I don't know if this song lands with everybody else like it does for me, but I always felt like this song was holding a place for some moment of my life. I've always said like Bono's like my big brother. And so when he's singing, it didn't occur to me, but this ellipse that's on the end of the song, for me, it lands. My brother takes his own life in 2021, and it's just like, wow, okay, well, now this song really has meaning to it. And you want to try to understand these moments. And U2 has always been so autobiographical, which makes it biographical for us too, in our own lives. And it's just hard to compete with that, with a song written by a little teenage kid who's not sure what he's going to do next. And he's in a scary place, living in a scary house, in a scary world. And his ability to put the words together, it's way stronger and Stuck in a Moment. And, that song won like 3 Grammys or something like that. So it's unfair. But I'll say it's Stuck in a Moment, 10-9.
Okay. This was I've got tough round written next to a lot of these on as I was doing my pre-work for hosting, and this is one of the ones that I marked as a tough round. So I feel you on this. Brian, you're second in this round, so let's hear what you have to say.
All right, these were very similar songs for me, and not I tied. It was a tie round for me, 10-10. But I have to say, not
What?
necessarily.
Oh,
What is
wait,
this?
wait,
A
wait.
tie? What is going on here?
You know, I'm
Well-
gonna give you the benefit of the doubt and give you a little bit of time to talk about your tie before I completely lambaste you
Oh my
That's
for
fine,
giving us
that's fine.
the tie. So go ahead.
I couldn't. I couldn't. I didn't think it wasn't that one wasn't better than the other, but I felt that neither one of them hit the mark equally, and I was equally disappointed with them. I not that I didn't like them, because I feel like if I say I'm disappointed with them, I didn't like them, because I did like them, but both of them missed the mark. With Stories for Boys, I felt like they were trying to do a similar thing that they did to One just 2 songs ago, where they were trying to have, like Old Man Edge is singing to, I guess Young Man Bono to match up with the lyrics there, and they just missed it. It just sounded kind of sad and almost depressed, and it didn't have that same emotion that One had. So I felt like they missed the mark. They put them too close together. I felt like I already heard this, But then when I got to Stuck in a Moment, it just sounded to me like take 2 of the acoustic version of Stuck in the Moment that came out 20 years ago. It didn't feel like it built on anything. I wasn't, I thought it was better than the first acoustic version that came out, but I didn't think it was an improvement on the album version or any different. It was just sort of like Who's Gonna Ride Your Wild Horses. It was just a cover song of Stuck in a Moment, and they've already done an acoustic cover of it. So that doubling up there really didn't sit well with me. So neither one of them made it up there. If I could have made it 9-9, that made it felt more appropriate, but 10-10 is where it's at. So I wish I had a better answer. I wish it was a stronger or more clear-cut round, but neither one of them got there for me.
Yeah, I have a lot of them that are bordering on ties. I always dig deeper to find that one little nit to pick, and it's usually something negative about one song that puts it below the other one, as opposed to finding something that's soaring about the one song that puts it above the other. Because when you've got a tie in your head, it's really just finding flaws in one song that don't exist in the other. Again, a tie is allowed, but you have to be ready to be teased about it a bit.
Still a coward.
That's fine by me. Hey,
Yes.
if they hadn't already had an acoustic version of Stuck in the Moment, I think Stuck in the Moment would have won. That was the last thing that I was like, no, I can't do this. We've already done this. We've already been there. I can't pick one or the other.
Yeah, Todd, you're up.
Well, I thought this was very close too, and I'm glad I didn't make it a tie now. So I was looking at this.
Well, you're not a coward.
I'm a coward the other way. So against peer pressure, which is usually the way it goes.
Yes.
So I really like the album Boy. I like October. Gloria is my favorite U2 song, by the way. It has amazing bass work on it. But anyway, so this, I had forgotten about this or something, but one thing with this album is making me go back to the first 3 U2 albums and really, really listen to them again. But I like this. I thought this was a really good version. I had a note, is Edge singing ? So I guess you've already answered that for me, Pete. It sort of grew on me, and it reminded me of Mad World, kind of that acoustic version of that, which is a little bit drippier than this was. Stuck in a Moment You Can't Get Out. This is really good. I feel like some of these songs maybe are harmonically complex enough to, take this kind of stripped down treatment. They're no Joni Mitchell, they're no Burt Bacharach, but this one I thought really stood up well to the acoustic treatment of it, just in terms of the harmony and the harmonic progression. But again, this was close, but I gave it to Stuck in a Moment You Can't Get Out of 9-10.
Okay. All right. Round 3 is in the books, and we're moving on to round 4, where we have 11 O'Clock TikTok, which was a non-album single from 1980, so another very old song, going up against Red Hill Mining Town, originally from Joshua Tree, 1987. And we're back to the top of the order. Brian, you're up first.
Okay, I feel like my score is probably a bit of an upset, but I have a knockdown score of 11 O'Clock TikTok over Red Hill Mining Town. The reason for that is I think 11 o'clock TikTok is like the quintessential U2 sounding song, because it's got that chimey guitar. And it just, if I hear, what does U2 sound like? I think of that song. And I think in this version, it kind of maintained that feel, but it took it a step further. And it kind of, I wrote down here flamenco ? When I was listening to this song, because it definitely had this kind of Spanish flamenco tone to it that I really appreciated and seemed to fit. Like, you wouldn't think that would make sense within the song, and it did. So it was one of those songs that really kind of grew into something more with the way that they did it this time. And I liked that it was a little slower. It felt like it gave it more soul and more oomph and more feeling and more emotion that I really appreciated. And like Red Hill Mining Town, it's a great song, but this version, the stripped down version, it really felt like it lost a step, and it didn't bring it up to the level that song should be. And I didn't like the horn section in it either. And I know that they were pulling that out of like the Joshua Tree Tour 2017/2019 version that they played, and like really bringing those horns. I think they were buried in the mix in the Joshua Tree, and they pulled them up a little bit to make them more, visible. It didn't do it for me, and it doesn't do it for me here. I think it makes the song go from being a really strong song to a song that sounds almost like it's a filler song that they just kind of stuck in there. So again, 10-8, 11 o'clock TikTok is the knockdown winner.
Ooh, all right. U2 puts U2 on their knee. Look at that. Todd, you've got second slot here. What did you think about TikTok versus Red Hill?
Yeah, I really like both of these songs. So I was doing a little bit of research. These are both songs where U2 was very unhappy with the production and the recording process. So it's kind of interesting that these both were put in the same position. I was reading about the 11 o'clock TikTok sessions, and frankly, it sounds like a nightmare, because like the producer guy, I forget his name, said, "Oh, I just hallucinated a gherkin," so that's never a sign of confidence if you're going to work with somebody. But anyway, I really like that song. I'd never heard it before. One thing I liked about it was it's about Bono was at a Cramps concert and just looking at all the unhappy goth kids, like kind of shuffling around. And it's funny because when you go to a show, sometimes you're right in the audience and sometimes you're outside the audience. And so it's cool. I don't even know if I thought about it enough to put words to it, but it's cool that somebody had a song they just sort of talked about being outside the audience, like being in it but not of it. And I kind of like that. So just kind of thematically, I liked it a lot. And I like the song too quite a bit. I don't know what the drummer was playing. It was like some kind of toy kit or a brush on a tambourine or something, but I really liked it though. Red Hill Mining Town, any song about strikes I like. I love when multimillionaires sing like Working Class Hero or Allentown. I love that kind of stuff. I just finished a book, if I may, quick aside, called Champlain Street. It's about the 1934 Autolite strike in Toledo, Ohio, which my grandpa was a picketer on that. And they stripped a guy naked and they ran him around town. It's pretty exciting. But anyway, I recommend that book. So anything about strikes, I like that kind of stuff. The other thing I like is how Bono approaches his song lyrics. Like he's rewriting Gilgamesh or rewriting the Iliad. He's like the son of the father and the blood of the whatever. I love that kind of stuff. He just goes full on epic. And I think that's good. So 10-9 for me.
All right. So we've got 2 for 11 o'clock TikTok. Pete, you going to make it unanimous for us?
Probably. Let's see here.
Unanimous.
Yeah. Red Hill Mining Town. I still have a lot of good things to say about this cover. This is more of a cover than a reimagination, and I get that it's unfinished business and they were never happy with it in the first place. But look, the first thing is if you're going to have horns, have horns. These sound like keys, and if it's an old mix that they brought it forward and there's the horns, then get better horns, because those horns don't. You bring horns in to move people, and I'm just not moved by it. And Bono goes to that Lou Reed trick where he goes down like half a note at the end of a phrase sometimes, and it's all right. I don't mind it, but I just think he is trying to do something else, and that's sort of an old trick. Maybe I'm being unfair, but we're trying to pick nits here, and I just didn't really care for Red Hill Town. I wish there was just something else. Like if you're going to do this with this song, you already have a fresh remake. There's just not enough distance. pick something else. Pick another song. There's 100 other songs you could pick. Pick Lemon and go do that instead, or pick a different song from that album. Or you can pick Kite. Hey, why not do Kite? How great would that song be if you was reflect on it? So I just trip through your wires. How about that? I don't know. There's a lot. Acrobat. Do Acrobat instead of this song. If you do that, then you can win 10-9. 11 o'clock TikTok is like, I love what you said, Brian. It's so true. Like, it's the early U2 sound, the sound that we let us know what we were listening to was something different. And I love it. I love all the stories in the background of when they recorded this, like the other Irish band coming in saying, hey, that's our title to our song. And there's a near fight or probably a fight of some kind. The crazy producer that Todd referenced, and his form of insanity that they didn't dig because they were trying to do it. I also love Larry Mullen's dad coming down and grabbing him and pulling him out of the studio and said, this kid's got school tomorrow. He's not going to hang out all night in the studio. All of these things that happened. It's just, Nadir's song really gets it for me. So I'm going to give it to Red Hill Mining Town 10-9, just because I think it's a better song overall based on its earlier roots, but it was a close round for me.
But that puts round 4 in the books, and that takes us to round 5, where we have Out of Control, another 1980 song, this one from Boy, going up against Ordinary Love, which was a non-album song released back in 2013. And Todd, you lead us off in this round.
Okay. So yeah, Out of Control. So this is another one from Boy. I must have forgotten and replaced that with some other memory. But I went and listened to that. The original completely rocks, and it's such a good song. And like I said, I'm gonna, after this, I'm gonna go listen to those first 3 albums over and over. This is kind of the first one where they remade it. And I feel it didn't even touch the original. It was like nowhere close to it. And I didn't like the falsettos. I didn't like the reverb on it. Everything just kind of took me out of the song and annoyed me. Ordinary Love, that's an amazing song. Even though it started out, I thought it was going to be Bronski Beats' Small Town Boy. That's what I thought originally. But there's because I was like, what is that song? I found a version on YouTube where they sing it on Fallon, and if you can ignore Fallon's creepy kind of staring at Bono, like cover that up with a piece of paper, it's an amazing cover. And then the Roots jump in, and that's a really incredible cover. And I would say actually, if it could have just put that on the album, it would have been way, way better. But anyway, this is an example of kind of where they needed maybe more quality control, maybe more of an editor on this, because there's like Edge is going like, yeah, and it's going back and forth left to right, like it's some 1970s song or something. So, this one I didn't think was as good, but I really like this song. That was really nice. So 10-9, I gave it to Ordinary Love.
Okay, Pete, you're second here.
All right. I look at Out of Control and I think this is an artifact. This is one of these songs that predates Paul McGuinness managing the band, and the lyric is childish. Look, it's a great song, and when it comes out, you're like, wow, this band's really got something going. But they get so much better over the years, and you really see that. And so I'm hoping that there's something in this. Curious though, in the audiobook, Out of Control, the version that they do, it's not the same new version of the Songs of Surrender album one, and I thought that was kind of an interesting thing, and I wonder why they made that choice. Bono's confused about the world, not sure what he's going to be doing, a little more of those kind of themes, and so it's an all right song. In and by itself is fine, but then you got to go against Ordinary Love, which is a Golden Globe winning song. It's this incredible thing for a band that has done a lot of incredible things. Now, Ordinary Love may not be in the top 20 best U2 songs, but it's significantly above Out of Control. So you look at the two of them, you put them together, and I just kind of look at them like, this is a professional song. Professional people hiring professional people to do professional things professionally for a movie. It's just hard to compete with that. And so when they redo them, one's starting Ordinary Love is starting way ahead of Out of Control. And so I gave this one to Ordinary Love 10-9.
Fair enough. Yeah, it was Out of Control was also on U2-3, wasn't it? Stories for Boys, Out of Control, right. And Boy Girl. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, this is literally one of their first songs. So, that's they've probably performed this song a ton, I would guess. Actually, Brian could probably tell us. Brian, you have the final say in this round, and could probably tell us how many times they've performed Out of Control.
A lot. I don't know the top of my head, but I'm gonna buck the trend here. I actually have Out of Control winning this round. Not only are they winning, but I have a knockdown as well.
Ooh.
I know. So for me, like sometimes I just cannot separate, a live version of a song from the song itself. And to me, Out of Control is one of, in terms of U2 performing the song live, one of the best songs that they performed. One of my favorite live U2 memory, and I've seen them a bunch of times. I remember seeing them at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford on a 360 tour. They finished their show. They were about ready to leave, and then they changed their mind. And they're like, we're going to play one more, and it was Out of Control. And they blew the doors off of this 90,000 seat arena with this song that they'd written 40 years before. I feel like there's an energy that's built into the song that trumps almost anything, really. And this, again, and my score here also reflects what I'm seeing as a trend, is that the songs that are grown and rehashed and rebuilt fare really, really well versus the ones that just kind of feel like they're doing an acoustic version of it. And this feels like a whole other song. It's like they turned up the Irishness of the song and put we're really going to delve into that Irish sound and really add that in there. I know somebody said they didn't like the falsetto, but I have my notes here. I wrote down cool falsetto because I really I enjoyed it. The acoustic guitar solo really added a dimension to the song that also made me wonder, what would it sound like if they added this solo with an electric guitar next time they play it as a full band? I bet that would sound really great. And Ordinary Love, great song. It is, it's solid. It has a fantastic chorus. It sticks with you. You hear that chorus and it's like, I feel myself singing it in my head for the rest of the day whenever I hear it. The live versions they've done of it have been great. So it's solid, but it doesn't have that extra. Like, it's just kind of an intimate acoustic version, and I didn't find that as exciting as what they did with Out of Control. It didn't have that same kind of growth and that same kind of let's do something new and fresh. So that was what pushed over Out of Control for me. So 10-8.
Wow. I sided with Brian here, and again, I'm the host, so my score doesn't count, but I always score just so that I've got a little skin in the game. And I did side with you, Brian. I thought that Out of Control was a good transformation from the original while still paying homage to it. And I thought Ordinary Love was really just kind of a redo of the song. And it's a great song, but again, I kind of keyed in on the same things that you did, I think. And this does bring us to the halfway point, which when I get to the halfway point, I always take a beat just to let the audience know how the score is coming along. And right now we have disc 1 or side 1 by a 1-round margin, 3 rounds to 2. But when we look at the score, there's a bigger margin. It is 7 points ahead.
Wow.
So disc 2 really needs to make up some ground to pull this one out. But disc 2 also has some pretty good stuff coming in on the second half, and may still be able to redeem itself. So that takes us into round 6, where we do have Beautiful Day, one of my favorite songs of ever, all time, from All You Can't Leave Behind, 2000. Going up against Sometimes You Can't Make It on Your Own, which is also one of my personal favorite songs from their catalog, from 2004's How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. And Pete, you get to lead us off on this really easy round.
Yeah, this might be the hardest round in terms of like notoriety that we've ever done. It's so massive, and I struggled for a long time trying to figure it out. Normally, I don't listen more than once, maybe twice, but I had to really sit on this one so I could find the difference, because I wasn't going to go out like Brian and come back with a 10-10 score. It's got to always take a dig at Brian when we get a chance to. And it's all, you can smile on my face. It's all in good fun, everybody. Don't get mad at Brian. Don't get mad at me. My first word with I just say tough instead of Sometimes You Can't Make It on Your Own. I just say tough, the original title. Wow. this is such a great song. The message in it, all of the Grammys and the accolades that come with it. It's just, dang, it's just such a big song, and it does so much. But the new version, those last three verses and the way they're reimagined, that's just really special. And it's just Apex, U2 apexing. It's like they're at the very top. If you want to ever lick this band, you'd better catch them before they get to the last three verses of this song, because you're just not going to be able to do it. It's so powerful. It's so good. It's on par with the best work that Stevie Wonder has ever done, James Brown, like the very tippity top of that mountain. And those last three verses of the song are just incredible. I like the stripped down version. I think it was great. This is one of the songs that was very well served by this format. And I was really glad. And like when you worry, you're like, oh boy, this has been kind of dodgy left and right. And, not everything's going to work. And by the way, when you take a swing at 40 songs from your catalog, you're going to have some misses, and it's bold to do that. Not many bands have that many songs that are worthy of reimagining, and these guys are out there doing it. So all the credit, and they just absolutely smashed this thing. I love it. Beautiful Day is, like Mike, it's one of my favorite songs. It is one of the best songs that anyone's ever made. Michael Stipe is famous for saying, I wish I would have wrote it. And it's a song that other bands wish they could, but they cannot. They cannot write it. And it also puts a message out. It's Orwellian in that every political party, every candidate seems to use this song on a fairly regular basis. President Obama, people on the right, people on the left, all kinds of people. I think a union used it, and it's just one of those songs that you can put out there, and it just gives the right message. And I just think it's fantastic. There's so many great new lyrics in there, but I love laughter is the evidence of freedom. It's a great lyric. And for me, a very tight round. The one thing that I will say, and I said this before, but this song belongs in a stadium. It doesn't need to be stripped down, and it needs to get bigger. It needs to be outside. And so in this very weird format that we've created, Tough is a better song than Beautiful Day because it works in this smaller setting, and you're just waiting for Beautiful Day to bust out of the room and go really get big. So because they never really get a chance to do that, I went 10-9 for Sometimes You Can't Make It on Your Own.
Yeah, Pete, it's like you read my notes. I dare anybody to listen to Beautiful Day and not smile. Brian, you're up second here for this round.
Okay, this was a tough one. In fact, this was the last pair of songs that I scored, and I think I had a total of 3 different scores before I settled on the one that I actually wanted here. They're both classic songs. They're both great. So for me, I didn't want to just kind of go off of that. I wanted to really kind of look at them in comparison to each other. I felt like Beautiful Day here for me is the winner. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it was a strong winner. So I scored a 10-8, and another knockdown for this one, which I almost didn't, but I felt like it felt right when I finally got there. Beautiful Day is a classic song, and this version is still a classic song. I felt like, even like I think Pete had said, it wasn't as big as it should have been, but for me, I felt like I could appreciate that, and I could fill in the blank myself and appreciate it for what it was, because like it maintained all of the feelings of the original. Like it still felt as joyous and happy and beautiful as the original did. And it went about it in a different way. And I felt like that was a huge accomplishment on the band's part to have the same feeling, but have it also sound so completely different. And I felt like I needed to give them credit for pulling that off, because I feel like that was an otherworldly accomplishment. Sometimes You Can't Make It on Your Own. I actually think this version is one of the few that are as good, if not better, than the one that is on All That You Can't Leave Behind. Bono sounds incredible. The band sounds incredible. If they played this version in a live setting, I think it would be far and away one of the best versions of this song they've ever played, and it would be a highlight every time. I did feel that it started a little slowly, and it was a little of a bland beginning, but I think the song in general has a slow start and really has to, it builds up to what it needs to be. But sometimes, like when I do listen to this song, I do wish that it had a stronger start. But overall, like Beautiful Day is such a classic. I think more so than Sometimes You Can't Make It on Your Own, Beautiful Day in either version is going to be a song that we remember again 20 years from now, maybe 30 or 40 years from now, where maybe sometimes you can't make it on your own, may not be. But so Beautiful Day for me is a clear winner, even though they're both fantastic.
All right, fair enough. Todd, take us home on this.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what was just said there by Brian and Pete. Starting with Sometimes You Can't Make It on Your Own, I think this is better suited, like Pete said, for that format of, kind of more intimate instrumentation and singing. The lyrics are just like a freaking punch in the gut, where it says, and it's you when I don't pick up the phone, anybody with a complicated parental relationship can relate to those lyrics, and it's quite good. Anyway, and I think the vocals are really good. I don't like that little zithery, stringy thing. I don't know what that is, but I call it the zithery thing in my notes. And also Bono does amazing vocals here. He does that Tom York thing where you go from the chest up to the head, just kind of like one soaring swoop. He can growl, he can do all this stuff. I mean, Tom York is 61. You think he'll be able to do that? I don't know, but Bono's just an incredible singer. I think underrated for his singing. Beautiful Day. I really like this song. I like how they mixed it. Bono's like right in the center. He's dry. He's got very, very little reverb. He's like sitting in your headphones. He's licking on your eardrums a little bit, singing. And I like that, how that's mixed, and it's very intimate. But again, I don't think it's 100% appropriate for a song like this, like Pete says, like a stallion or something that has to run around. The other thing I'll say with Adam Clayton, his bass, like as the song goes on, he's doing these like cool little counter melodies and these cool little counter things, and really, really subtle, very, very good bass work. And again, I think he's underrated as a bassist, and I personally bought into that. But his bass work on here, as with One, I just think is really, really good. The thing about Beautiful Day is it just felt like maybe it was a little bit longer than the 4 minutes that it was. It felt like it was maybe wearing out its welcome a little bit for just kind of how the production was and how I don't know. It just felt a little bit samey, like it wasn't going anywhere. It's so intense. So just based on that, I gave it 10-9 for Sometimes You Can't Make It on Your Own.
That takes us up to round 7, where we have Bad from The Unforgettable Fire, 1984, going up against Invisible, another non-album single, this one from 2014 originally. And we've got Brian leading us off again. Brian.
All right. Well, I think Invisible is the most underrated U2 song there is. And I think this version of the song is actually better than the single version. It fits what the song should be better than the original version did. It's like, this is what it should have been to begin with, I felt like. And there's something about this song that really resonates with me, and I think resonates with a lot of people, and it's just great. However, Bad is such a good song that no matter what they do to it, I don't think anything can beat it. So my score for this is a 10-9 in favor of Bad. I think if this had been any song other than Bad, Invisible would have beaten it, but I don't think you can beat Bad with anything. And Bad in this case, this is kind of like Beautiful Day again. It's a completely different song, but it maintains the same feeling in a way that I find so impressive and so difficult to do that I don't think anybody other than U2 can pull off doing something like this. It's the same song. Well, it's the different song. The strings make it great. The Bono's vocals add a whole new dimension to the song that wasn't there before, but it still felt similar at the same time. Like it was such an experience that I don't even really know how to describe myself fully about how great I think this song is and how great I think this version is. Bad is this is if you look on Twitter and you kind of follow what people are saying about these songs, Bad keeps popping up a lot as a song that people are really wowed and floored by, and I absolutely agree. This might be one of the best songs of the entire 40 is Bad right here. But Invisible really did a great job. I was surprised when I heard Invisible that it got so close to Bad, because that's almost an upset right there. This should have been a knockdown, maybe even a double knockdown. And I kind of surprised myself by having it be so close. I even wrote closer than expected here in my notes. Like that I'm shocked. I'm still surprised. at how close together these are, considering how good Bad is. That's how good this version of Invisible is. I almost feel bad for it because it really should have had a better matchup, I think. But Bad's the clear winner for sure.
Yeah, sometimes I use this expression. Sometimes you just run into a blender in album fight where you got a good song and then it just runs into like, Here Comes the Sun from the Beatles. Like, yeah, good luck, buddy. And Bad is you're right, one of those songs that just touches everybody in different ways, but it just is such raw emotion in that song. It's really hard to overcome, at least in my humble opinion. Todd, let's hear your humble opinion.
All right, very humble. So when you start with Invisible, it's like running right into the buzzsaw against Bad. I didn't like this one as much as the original. I thought it felt a little bit drippy. I like the repetitive part, like maybe it's a barroom sing-along or football chant. It's got that going with it, but I wasn't that familiar with this song. It kind of sucks, like these songs that get unveiled in like Super Bowl commercials, like brought to you by Dorito Cool Ranch or whatever. It's just a little bit depressing. There's an interview with Bono in the New York Times this week. It's interesting. Well, I recommend everybody read it because the interviewer calls him like Davos man and stuff like that. But, he talks about songs. He goes, I can make a song famous. Bono says, I can make a song famous, but I can't make it a hit now. And I thought that was an interesting kind of comment, on his place and how the music industry actually is at this point. But anyway, getting to Bad, I think Bad was great. And a little bit earlier, Brian was talking about Get Out of Your Own Way, how it felt like an intimate jam session. This had that same kind of feeling to me. They just kept building layers and layers of acoustic instruments really in an interesting way. And that's got to be super hard to do without making it sound like a mess, like Todd Rundgren, that one song about I Don't Want to Work. But anyway, it just keeps on going and building and building. And I thought it was super interesting. It's like a jam session that doesn't make you want to cringe, and Bono and Edge are singing together and they're really good, voices together. I guess I've never really heard that before in their mixes. So this was good. Also the cellos, when they drop in, they build a lot of tension and they make it really good. So I really like this. This is one of the great songs about heroin, including Dead Flowers, Time Out of Mind, and maybe I Want You, She's So Heavy. Maybe we should do an album fight about heroin songs. But this one's sort of anti-heroin, I feel. Anyway,
we can do an all heroin mixtape. See what people can come up with.
But I think that the other thing is Edge's guitar playing is really, really good. And I thought, is he doing this without a delay? Like, how would you even do that? How would you even finger that? And then I hear the squawk kind of repeating. I was, okay, he's got a delay. But that kind of blew me away in the first couple seconds of the song. Anyway, two really good songs, but I think Bad wins 10-9 pretty handily. Absolutely.
Pete, take us home.
Yeah, all right. I'll bring us on home. The things I guess I want to say, and I agree with Brian, Invisible is such a great song, and it's probably one of the best pop songs written in the last 10 years. But, because again, it's just like a Ordinary Love. You've got a professional band doing professional things professionally, and so when you submit a song that's already going to be an 8, a 9, something like that, not very many songs, even on this album, that are going to be able to take it down. It is such a good, well-constructed song. Maybe there's not quite enough distance between it to get the whole reflection and reimagination. It's sort of hard to reimagine something you just imagined just a few years ago. And so I think it might suffer from that just a little bit, but look, it's a fantastic song. For any other band, they'd be like, we're super stoked to have written this. You can say this a lot about U2 songs. And if you were to stack up all of U2 songs and rank order them on quality, Invisible would be, pretty far down the list, but only because U2 has so many incredible songs that have to go above it. And like we've all said, they run into one of those songs, and Bad on its own. And maybe the problem with Invisible is they watch tape of Bad, the old like the one before, and they're like, I can lick that one because I'm a pro. I've got modern training. I've got modern things. But this one went to the Poconos and really trained hard and got ready and came back. And I think in terms of this particular album fight, it is the strongest reimagination of all of them. The way the lyrics have evolved, the 40 years difference, we're all, as we get older, better able to understand that time in Ireland, the troubles and all the things that come out of that, to include addiction and hopelessness, as you see all of this anger. And look, when you live in a place And this is speaking as a combat guy. When you live in a place where there's always going to be a bomb, you just don't know where it's going to be. You have to live your life, and you're just waiting for that moment to happen. Even if it doesn't happen, it's tearing you apart. There's an incredible tension there. And so if you were to seek out something like heroin to alleviate that, well, I can understand that scenario. And then the way Bono changes the lyric, it just really becomes powerful, because when you get older, you realize that addiction, especially when it's born on the back of this tragedy, it's one thing if you're sort of always faded, like this horrible, a faded twist, like you're going to be a heroin addict. But if you go through this trial and heroin is your answer, you get to be 50 something years old. Like, well, I'm 53. I'll just speak for myself. You've lost friends, whether they're alive or not. Like, hey, that guy is a different guy than the guy I used to love, and because of his addiction. And so you have that voice that Bono gives us. I do have one nit to pick, though, on the lyric. And he talks a little bit about, well, first off, let me talk about a couple of good things here. So he says the word surrender, just surrender. And that's what we want. We want our friend just to let it go, right? But you can't, because you have that programming to not let it go. Like every addict would just love just to quit and go back to their family and have a good life, but they're not capable of doing it. That's part of the problem. And so he's desperate. It's like, you get into the light and out of the flame, and then the addict says to him, I already know what you're going to say. And it's the same thing that we all say, like, just stop, don't do it. And he puts the word if in there. And I think if you just take it, just say, just let it go. Because that's what your friend's going to say. Just let it go. Just stop. But you can't, because you're an addict. And to speak to this in this way, in this format, with the fantastic, you guys did such a great job describing the music part, but the lyric is really what elevates this song. And it's everything what 11 O'Clock TikTok and Red Hill Mining Town should be, but Bad lands it. And this is what UT gets all the credit. They take this shot and they get there. And someone's going to be like, no, the best song on the album is Red Hill Mining Town. And they're going to love it. And they're going to be right, because that's one of the things about U2 is there'll be 35 my favorite songs out of these 40 songs that are on this album. So I just think that Bad, in this case, in this format, Bad is so strong with the reimagination and the you're taking the youthful eyes and putting these middle-aged man eyes, these 63-year-old eyes, and you put it on this problem. It's hard to argue with someone who's so poetic and so observant and so able to change the point of view of a song from Bono. So this for me is a knockdown. It's 10-8. And I know it's crazy because Invisible is such a great song, but Bad just elevates. If Invisible wasn't as professional and solid a song as it was, it'd be a 10-7 round for me. But in this case, it's 10-8 for Bad.
Yeah, I can't argue. I scored it a knockdown as well, for much of the same reasons. And in the intro, I said, Pride was what got me to hear U2 versus listening to U2. But Bad was right up there with it. And that takes us through round 7 into round 8, where we've got Every Breaking Wave from 2014's Songs of Innocence taking on Dirty Day from, finally, an appearance from Zooropa, one of my favorite albums from 1993. And Todd, you lead us off here.
All right. Yeah, I wasn't super familiar with either song, actually. I think Every Breaking Wave has really amazing lyrics, and Bono is an amazing lyricist. Just like he's an amazing singer. It's not hard to say he's underrated anybody. But anyway, he, that sort of like every broken wave on the shore, this is as far as I can reach. That's a really good metaphor. And I think he says earlier that the ocean's like a friend that turned enemy or something, but it's just really good. This, I didn't care for this arrangement. It sounded like Coldplay maybe in the 2000s a little bit, like Coldplay doing a YouTube tribute, or maybe hold music you'd listen to like while you're on hold waiting to find out why your health insurance was declined or something. Like that's kind of the vibe that I got. Something to listen to while you buy Bitcoin maybe. But anyway, I think I really liked the other parts of the song. Dirty Day, the cello intro, I was singing Here We Are Now, Entertain Us. I couldn't help it. And so that I kind of ruined the song from the start, and that's my fault, not U2's. This needed some drums or something to keep it together. And again, I didn't think it was harmonically interesting enough for this kind of, intimate kind of, scaled down, break it down. Like, I don't know, what would a U2 fake book look like? The one thing I did like in the production choice, there was like reverb, Bono's voice, he says, put me in the ground, and the reverb cuts out right as he's saying "put me on the ground." I thought that was really cool because all of a sudden he's like right up in your face. But anyway, so for this, I give Every Breaking Wave a 10-9.
All right. Pete, you're second in this round.
Dirty Day. Look, I've taken a lot of time in earlier rounds, so I'll be a little quicker this one. I think this is the weakest round of the fight. Dirty Day. Look, I love Zooropa. For me, it's one of my very favorite U2 albums. There's a lot of favorite U2 albums, but that one just caught me at the right time, and it sort of cemented our lifelong relationship. Just the way it came through. I just wish they would have picked a different song. I get that Dirty Day never quite finished for them. I guess they picked a lot of songs where they had unfinished business. I just don't think that it's as interesting, or maybe they could have done more rewriting of the lyric. I don't know, but it was sort of empty. And Every Breaking Wave is, Todd did such a great job. The metaphor in there, and Bono's singing is just gorgeous in this song. So it's just a fast and easy 10-9. It's kind of like a rust up round, getting ready for the end of the fight. So both fighters are sort of refreshing. 10-9, Every Breaking Wave.
All right, Brian, take us home on this round.
All right, I was really looking forward to this round because Dirty Day is probably my favorite deep U2 cut. And I think Every Breaking Wave is a modern classic. Like, it is like the best song they've written since in the 2010s and onwards. I would say the 2000s, if not for Beautiful Day. Like, I think it's that good. In this case, I'm going to go against what I said earlier. This song recreates like the live E Stage version that they did on the Innocence and Experience tour. And usually I wouldn't really like that. I would think, they should have done a little better. They should have done more. But this arrangement fits the song perfectly. It makes it a nearly perfect song to me. I think the way that it's arranged and the way that it's slowed down forces Bono to sing in such a way that really drives the song home. And I feel like if I tried to do that, I'd probably pass out. Like the vocal power that he puts on in this particular version is impressive, and it just makes the song an absolute perfect, victorious song. Dirty Day is a great song. If I'm a little biased here, I think if I didn't like it as much, this would have been a knockdown round, but I'm going to score it as Every Breaking Wave is 10, Dirty Day is 9. It's a great song. I like the arrangement. I think I enjoy it, but it doesn't do anything new based on the original. I don't like it more. I don't like it less. It's just kind of there. It's a new version of Dirty Day. That's really nice. It doesn't come anywhere near that. But again, Every Breaking Wave, stone cold classic, perfect rendition, clear winner, 10-9.
I have all three of these last rounds, 8, 9, and 10, marked as tough rounds. So. Yeah, these are. I think these are all going to make the difference in the fight. These last 3 rounds. And talking about the last 3 rounds, this takes us to the penultimate 9th round, and we have "Walk On Ukraine." "Walk On" is originally from 2000's "All That You Can't Leave Behind," going up against a much newer song, "Miracle" of Joey Ramone, originally from 2014's Songs of Innocence. And Pete, on the penultimate round, you get to penultimately lead us off, bud.
All right, well, here we go. The penultimate round. Let's get it on here. Walk On. First off, strong song to begin with. Wasn't one of the highlights from the album necessarily, but just one of those things where if that's the floor of the album, wow, it's a really good album. Like Todd has been mentioning, Adam's bass lines were just fantastic, and he does a great job subtly working up and down, and I think his counter melodies are fantastic, and it's great. I love the line, "This is not a curtain call, this is the greatest act of all." Like, that's fantastic. One of the things, look, I get that the whole Ukraine and the message and everything else is going to push people away, but here's what Bono does. He writes songs about things that matter, even when we don't realize that it matters. And 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when this song has been recategorized and we get to see the atrocity, because we don't really get to see it right now. We know it sucks, but we don't understand how much it sucks. And he's been doing his job and he's capturing that. And so there's going to be some weight that's going to be added to the song, and the song can take it, and it'll be great. I love the line, "Home is where the hurt is," and also "Home, you know where it is when you're forced to leave one." Those are really powerful lyrics, again, put into the setting of Ukraine and then the war there with the Russians. "Miracle" of Joey Ramone. For me, there's not enough distance between this song. There's not enough reflection. If they're going to redo it, that's great. The best thing about this song and the other songs from this era, or when Bono is singing about seeing the Cramps, and they see the Sex Pistols, and they see all the kids with the Anarchy jackets, and they're in this time. They go see the Clash, and they inform them, and the Ramones, and all of this stuff. I love that he's capturing this, because I don't know that any other band can or should capture it, but these guys lived it, and they brought their version of all of this stuff to the marketplace and have turned themselves into, out of all of those bands, they are by far the biggest. You probably could stack all the bands I just mentioned together, and they're not going to be as big and as successful as U2. So I think overall, Walk On just a better song, and I think in this format it works better with the Ukraine thing. It's timely, it's epic, and it's what Bono does, and it's his damn job to get us to see these social things that we might pass by or not have time for. So 10-9 for Walk On.
Okay. Walk On takes it from Pete. Brian, you be next.
Okay, this round was a little bit of a mess for me. I'm going to get the score out of the way. I have Joey Ramone scoring a knockdown victory over Walk On Ukraine, and I feel really, really bad for saying that. Like, it physically hurts me a little bit. Walk On by itself is another classic U2 song. It should be significantly better. And the message, like Pete said, that Bono is getting across is fantastic and admirable. And it's U2 being U2 and Bono being Bono, which we should all strive for and we should all encourage. However, I was an English teacher in my previous life, and I taught creative writing for a couple of semesters. And we would always talk about the idea of show, don't tell. So when I hear the new lyrics of Walk On Ukraine, there's this little tiny English teacher, I guess, on my shoulder here, just screaming show, don't tell in my ear. Because I feel like Bono's telling me. And it really takes me out of the song, especially when the very first line of, when the comic takes the stage and no one laughs feels so obvious to me. And the beauty of the original Walk On was that it was a really deep metaphor. Like, you could look at it from a variety of angles. And it wasn't always immediately obvious that it was about Aung San Suu Kyi. Whereas this is immediately obvious that it's about Ukraine. Not only the fact that it's in the name there, but that he puts it right out there in such a blunt way really takes me out of it. Joey Ramone doesn't really fare much better. It kind of does the same thing. It's a good song. This version's fine. It's got a really cool groove, like the kind of groove they have going on reminds me of Get Out of Your Own Way, and I really appreciated it. But it also had lyrics that were show, don't tell, and took me right, or they told rather than show, I guess, is what happened. And it really took me out of it again. Like, when they get to the Viva Viva La Ramone chorus, like, that just sucked me right out of it. And I know I don't usually pay attention to what the lyrics are. The lyrics are just an instrument to me the majority of the time. But in both of these songs, it just broke through to me as something like, this sounds weird, this sounds off. It doesn't really do it for me. And again, Walk On is such a great song, and it really does redeem itself by the end. Like, it does kind of push up to what it should be. I think if the lyrics were a little better and written a little more artfully, this is easily a victory over Joey Ramone. But it just didn't do it for me. So Joey Ramone takes this round.
Todd, how did you score it?
Yeah, so that's interesting. They played this song. U2 played the song for Marky Ramone, and that was his comment. It was like, why didn't you mention his name in the song? So I'm glad that they went back and they fixed that this time in this song. I'm a sucker for any kind of songs about, being inspired by punk rock or liking punk rock or whatever. I like that kind of stuff. Maybe Jukebox Hero would be the exception to that. But I like the lyric where he says, I was young, not dumb. And I thought that's really good, because I think there's a lot of truth in that music that influenced him, and Joey Ramone was probably one of the bigger influences on his singing, at least at first. And so I thought it was really good. I went and I watched the original. I watched the video. Man, that is cringy. That is like really cringy stuff where they're dancing around and there's like pixels coming out and whatever. So listen to this version maybe. Now, Walk On Ukraine. This is a lesson to everybody. Write songs about people who are dead or going to die a week later, like the one about Nelson Mandela. So, because they're going to do something dumb, they're going to be complicit in a genocide, and then you're going to have to change your song later. So that's a very important lesson for all you songwriters out there listening. I think the same thing with the lyrics. It's a little bit too on the nose. It's a little bit too, it doesn't feel very inspired. And then I felt like the song was a little bit at this point, why not just write a new song? It felt a little bit drippy. I like the acoustic guitar work. I thought that was good. It kind of builds to a climax. It feels uninspired. It feels like a crane is lifting in a U2 song climax and putting it there, where it needs to go. So I gave it to Joey Ramone, but sort of by default, 10-9.
All right. And that takes us into the final round, where we have one hell of a way to end this fight. We've got Pride in the Name of Love, originally from 1984's Unforgettable Fire, going up against City of Blinding Lights from 2004's How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. And I am so glad I'm not a judge for this round. Todd, you're up first.
All right. So Bono changed Pride in the Name of Love this time to be about Mr. Rogers. So he changed 2 songs, actually, and I thought that was not very good of him to do. So this is sort of the song of my freshman year at Purdue. If like New Year's Day and Gloria are the songs of high school, this is the song like freshman year walking around Purdue. And I just found out that Chrissie Hynde sang backup on it too, which is wild because Pretender's first album was probably the thing in my Walkman the most during that. Anyway, I like this song a lot. I'm trying to see what my notes say. Sorry. Yeah, that's what I thought. So, like he took out the lyric, like betrayed with a kiss, like one man betrayed with a kiss, which I thought is a really amazing lyric. It said washed up on the beach. So I think he's talking about the Syrian kid who wound up in Turkey. That's sad, but I don't know what that has to do with, sort of Martin Luther King and stuff. So I just didn't like it. It was just, at this point, it feels like he's just kind of changing things just to change things and make new points. It's like reading the marginalia in somebody's own book, if that makes sense. And it had that Zithery thing in it that I didn't like. City of Blinding Lights also had the Zithery thing. This is a really amazing song, I thought. It's just like, what my notes, I said, Bono looks up his own ass and sees all of humanity in all of its glory there. That's sort of, he like goes through the solipsism into some kind of universal truth, which I think is a beautiful thing and probably a very, very rare talent. Also, that chorus of "You look so beautiful tonight," I think that's from the Sarajevo concert. That was like his famous line from that when he looked out at the audience and the audience saluted the guards. So anyway, I gave it to City of Blinding Lights 10-9, and I think it's a shame, sort of Pride in the Name of Love. I just that I didn't really care for that as much.
Okay, Pete, you get the second shift here on our final round. How did you feel about this one?
Yeah, boy, it was a tough round, and City of Blinding Lights is just such a fantastic song, and the meanings behind it, and boy, what a way to put a bow on the side of an album. I mean, it is really spectacular. I love it. Bono's singing again is gorgeous. They really focused on his vocals on this album, and you always know he can sing, but he's doing so much of the work with his voice that it's just impressive. And I wanted to take a moment to enjoy that and say, wow, this is a beautiful version of a very powerful song. But I just think when you look at Pride and the singing there also, it's so elite. And look, this song, even though the nature of it's been changed a little bit, this is a song about Martin Luther King. It's still relevant 50 years after his death. I mean, almost 55 now. And so we're starting to look at this, and what U2 is doing is they've buttressed MLK against history. Now, he doesn't need a whole lot of help, but here's this incredible force that constantly is returning him to the zeitgeist in a different way. And I just don't know how you get around that. And all the things that Bono has accomplished with the band and all, when they set out from the very beginning to be a useful band, there's a lot of power in that. And this is one of those songs that's a pillar for this usefulness and the voice that it gives. And although the cover version is a little more covery, I like it. It's not as big as, say, Bad was in the reintroduction, but I really thought it was a great version of it. And I'm looking at the importance of Pride over just the greatness of Blinding Lights, and I find it to be 10-9 for Pride.
And Brian, you get to take us home here on our final round, Pride versus City.
This was really, really close call for me, right? Pride is a classic song, but City of Blinding Lights is also a super classic song. Like I feel as though City of Blinding Lights is the second Where the Streets Have No Name. Like it's almost that good when it comes to like the live setting, particularly. Like it really takes off in a live setting. Pride felt flat to me. Like it needed to be. It's such a good song originally, and they needed to live up to that standard. And I just felt as though they didn't. Especially, like I didn't like how they recycled Bono's lyrics at the end as kind of like those backing vocals there. It felt like I understand what they were trying to do, but it didn't really land for me. City of Blinding Lights is another one of those songs, kind of like Bad, where it's going to be great no matter how they arrange it. So this is it's an easy victory. It's not a knockdown. Like I said, let me double check. But yeah, not a knockdown, but I have a 10-9 victory for City of Blinding Lights.
And I find both of these songs, the original and the reimagined versions, to be very great, very uplifting songs. But I went with the majority here also on City, that it just definitely edged out. And I've got to say that with Pride, repeat listenings have made this much better in my ears. The more I listen to it, the more the new version of Pride starts to kind of creep its way up in my likings, so to speak. It was the first time I heard it. I think it was the first one that they released pre-album, and the first time I heard it, I'm like, oh my god, is this what we're in for? But it was just such a jarring change from what we had seen before. So yeah, I think in the end that we're all pretty much aligned. I know Pete went with Pride over City of Blinding Lights, but I think he said just barely, right? Well, that wraps up the fight. We have a fight in the books, and we do have a victor. Not only do we have a victor, but we have a unanimous decision here. Not by a ton, but certainly a unanimous decision nonetheless. We have Disc 1 eking out a victory over Disc 2. All three judges are aligned here. It is a 9-point victory, so pretty decisive, to be honest. So let's hear Richard's post-fight analysis here and hear what he has to say after seeing the scores.
Okay, well, it seemed to kind of follow up with the numbers. I think it was a little bit closer on the judges' cards than the numbers. But if you really sit there and look at it, those middle rounds were a little bit give and take. They looked to be a little bit more split than the beginning rounds, which were very strong for one. One also, I think, finished a little bit stronger. I have not listened to these yet, and I'm very fascinated to see about round 10 because I'm interested in why Pride did not perform as well as one would think Pride would, as it being one of their greatest songs. So, fascinating fight. Can't wait for the next one. No tweaks to the system. We're gonna keep it the same for the first round. Then we may make some tweaks as we take the winners of each round and put them against each other. So this was a fun one. It was neat. Back to you guys.
Indeed, it was a lot of fun, and I'll start with appreciating the judges as I always do. Thank you for taking the time to do the work before the session, and of course, spending a couple hours on your weekend in a virtual room talking about music, which is what we love to do. When I first started talking with Pete about this, I was super jazzed to get this fight happening as soon as possible. So I appreciate the fact that you guys were able to kind of prioritize it and get it done so quickly. This has been really fun. But this is round 1 of 3 rounds. We have disc 3 versus 4 coming up, and then the winner of both of these are going to face off to see which disc of the 4 is the overall winner for Songs of Surrender. So let's do a quick judge recap. I'm going to start with you, Pete. Did things come out the way you thought they would? And have you learned anything new about U2?
Yeah, I've learned a lot about U2. I always know to trust that the album will grow on me. Like I said from the beginning, I know that when these guys make big leaps, they tend to land them. And I was really happy with a lot of the work that they had done. Even when I'm critical of these songs, I'm enjoying hearing how they reimagine them And I'm digging the concept of that and just their ability to continually reinvent themselves into something that's relevant. I think the news today is that this album is selling more than the next 5 albums combined. So I mean,
Yeah, in the UK, I believe.
Yeah, in the UK,
Yeah.
right. That counts. So it's selling like crazy, right? And so they've done something pretty special. They've gotten people's attention. And for a bunch of dudes in their 60s who don't just put out, and granted, this is old music, but it's completely changed. I don't think anyone's really ever done this. They might throw some strings behind something or bring out an entire orchestra, but this is a unique approach to use time as a new way to look at songs. So I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. I appreciate everybody coming on. I'm looking forward to next week's fight and seeing what happens. But I really enjoyed it. I've listened to this album. I've listened to the book a lot. Oh my gosh, you guys should definitely get the book. It's one of the best audiobooks ever, as I said before. Put a link there for that. And I will shut up and let Mike take over the rest.
Todd, let's hear from you. What do you think after getting through this? You had, of the official judges, you had the closest scorecard with a 95 to 94, which coincidentally was my score as well.
Yeah, I had fewer knockdowns. I think I only had one, and there were a lot more. I think this is really good. You know, I think it's like U2. They've been around for like 46 years or something. You know, and so it's real easy to take them for granted. They're like the oxygen or water, you know, you just they're just like an element. And so, you know, and I'm probably more guilty than anyone else. It's real easy to be, you know, cynical and you know, and that I'm not saying that was my approach to the band, but, you know, it's real easy to ignore it or just kind of underappreciate it. And so this kind of opened me back up to it. And, you know, when I was doing research and going back, I wound up watching the video for Gloria, you know, where they're on that barge and their fans are dancing around. And I'm like, it's amazing. I mean, the energy, everything about it, the songwriting, the playing, the musicianship, everything about it is just amazing. And then they only got better from that, you know. Maybe they got less in sync or out of sync with me during the phases, but they only got better from there, you know. And that early stuff just happens to be right in my strike zone for whatever reason. You know, it's interesting what you're saying about like Bono and the political changing the lyrics. I watched a documentary on the Police once, and Stuart Copeland was talking about he would get in these long arguments with Sting about whatever, capitalism or whatever, and Sting couldn't make an argument back. And then he'd go home and he'd write this amazing song with the lyrics that it perfectly encapsulated, you know, the issues and the arguments. And, you know, it's kind of Bono, I think, has a little bit of that with Sting, where, you know, he's able to just kind of take something in the atmosphere or take something, you know, out of the newspaper and just kind of encapsulate it into a thing and obliquely, you know, he's more effective the more oblique he is, I think, in some ways, you know. And so that's something, you know, that's something that I think is a really rare gift. And I think that's something that, you know, he consciously brings to the band and does that, you know, when he doesn't have to, you know. A lot of people with a lot less money have just sort of given up or just kind of gone through the motions or whatever. And these guys are just constantly treating themselves like the underdog and trying to prove themselves. I feel like they already have, you know, after how many years. So anyway, I mean, so if anything, I don't know that I'll be listening to this album, like, you know, on heavy rotation, but I'm definitely going back to the earlier stuff and definitely listening to that. So for that, I'm grateful.
So Brian, you had the most lopsided scorecard for sure. You scored a lot of knockdowns. I know you're a huge fan of the band. You know, like Pete and I, they've been a big part of your life for a lot of your life. What did you get out of this after the fight was over?
Well, I think it has kind of hit me listening to everyone else talk about this today. You know, there's been a lot, I kind of follow a lot of the discourse on social media about what fans are talking about. And before the album came out, there was a lot of this idea of like, this is really lazy of them to do this. And they could have made a new album of new material and all that sort of thing. But listening to the album and then kind of thinking back on it with the context of what you guys have had to say, I think we're underestimating how difficult this is and how much of an achievement this album is. It's not easy to take the songs that you've been playing the same way for 40 years, multiple times a year, that are so classic and that everybody knows the way that they are, and then rewrite them into almost different songs that are like Bad, just as impactful and just as good. Like that's impressive. That's hard to do. And I don't know that really any other band could do that, you know. I think we're all kind of sleeping on and underestimating that this was not an easy thing, and that this is really a testament to the fact that they are fantastic songwriters and musicians, and that they are, you know, there are other bands who have released reimagined versions of their songs, whether it's a whole album or just like one-off songs, but they're not the same as what this is. This is a whole new experience, and something only they can do, I think. And that really struck me as I was listening to everyone talk about these songs today.
Yep, I couldn't agree more with basically what all three of you guys said. So I'm going to jump into our standard album fight disclaimer, which is almost pointless with a U2 versus U2 fight. But we talk about the fact that we do album fight because we love music. We have to be critical of the songs because of this funky format we've created, where you have to criticize songs and you have to be a little bit of a nitpicker to find a winner sometimes. But the winner really is us for getting the chance to listen to this music. And hopefully the listeners will also become the winners by hearing this show and then going out and buying these albums and giving them a spin and really listening to them with new ears. And also, this is part one of a 3-part series here where we're going to do the rest of Songs of Surrender. So hopefully you'll be queuing up the next fight and then the next fight and enjoy listening to them as much as we enjoyed doing them.